Donald Trump's presidency seemed to polarize the world, with the masses sometimes questioning his decision-making skills. This mission, which happened to be the first that Trump ever approved just 9 days after being in office, fell under the same judgment as it ended in tragedy. But let's explore the details before Trump became President of the United States. Early in 2016, President Obama and U.S. intelligence became acutely aware of the presence of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, known as ACAP, with particular eyes on Yemen. Yemen was embroiled in a complex civil war between its government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition, and Houthi rebels aligned with Iran. The conflict created a fertile ground for extremist groups like ACAP to operate and expand. Obama's administration awoke the idea of a counterterrorism campaign in order to calm the ever-increasing tension in Yemen's population. By late 2016, Obama had deliberated but not acted on the campaign, and so it was handed over to Trump's power. A briefing was given to Secretary of Defense James Mattis just 24 hours after beginning his position as ACAP continued to operate in Yemen. A Special Operations Task Force of SEAL Team 6 was at a camp in Djibouti, rehearsing raids on ACAP bases where leaders could be targeted. Specifically, U.S. intelligence and UAE proposed raids in Yakaala, a small village where important ACAP activity had been identified. The main raids were aimed at collecting various electronics and documents in what is known as a sensitive site exploitation. This information would reveal important details about ACAP leadership and operations. Following the collection of this information, follow-up missions could be enacted swiftly and accurately. However, secret and unofficial details from inside the Pentagon suggest that this was also a disguise for a kill or capture mission of ACAP leaders. Trump and his administration discussed the details over dinner, a rather peculiar setting to discuss matters of such high importance. Sources highlight that there are often various levels of approval below the president before missions are briefed to the White House Situation Room. Yet Trump and some of his team discussed this mission at the dinner table, lacking representation from the State Department, another diversion from the norm. It was these sorts of details that spearheaded the ridicule after the tragic result of the mission. National Security Advisor Michael Flynn pointed out that global infamous terrorist Qasem al-Rimi had been sighted in their Yemen target previously, and how capturing or killing him would highlight Trump as outdoing Obama from his very first mission. On January 25, 2017, at the dinner table, the mission was given the green light. Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens and his team of Navy SEALs moved from Djibouti a day later on January 26, 2017. Boarding the USS Makin Island, the SEALs joined a quick reaction force, consisting of over 2,000 Marines and some fighter jets and attack helicopters in case the mission went south. Training together for a few weeks already, the SEALs and Marines were accustomed to each other and the commandos from the UAE, and they traveled towards Yemen over the following days. Shortly after midnight on January 29th, the SEALs of Team 6, who were tasked with the raid, descended upon Yakaala, hiking into the village from 6 miles downhill to surprise the ACAP. However, drones overhead alerted the men to some unusual activity as they neared the outskirts of the village. ACAP members appeared to be moving into fighting positions. Knowing that surprise was no longer a factor, those in charge of the mission who were observing from Djibouti and the Makin Island ship decided to proceed anyway. Ryan Owens and his fellow SEAL Team 6 members entered the village. Upon crossing the theoretical border, a large resistance force, which even included women, was fiercely defending the village. Defense stations and landmines were already strategically laid out across Yakaala, and the fight began. Just 5 minutes later is when this story turned sour. During the early minutes of the firefight, Ryan Owens was struck above his armored chest plate and was severely wounded. A medevac was requested immediately, and while waiting for its arrival, 2 more SEALs were injured. The Quick Reaction Force of Marines sent in 2 CV-22 Ospreys from the Gulf of Aden about 15 minutes away. AV-8B Harrier jump jets and attack helicopters also joined the battle. However, the tragedy continues. One Osprey crash-landed in the village. The crash was so severe that a Harrier was called in to destroy the remains to prevent al-Qaeda from utilizing any of the equipment or information. As the fight continued, 14 ACAP members were confirmed killed, with 2 of them being lead figures, although neither was al-Rimi. While this initially seems like a small win for the U.S., emerging details saw the story worsen. 16 civilian deaths were reported, 10 of which were children under the age of 13. As well as the 5 wounded in the SEAL team, Ryan Owens eventually died as a result of his injury. Because of the crash and the injuries, the team was also unable to collect the documents and information they entered Yokala for. So the mission was a failure, although the White House declared otherwise, calling the mission a success at various addresses. This was met with scrutiny from the public, including Senator John McCain, chairman of the Armed Services Committee, who challenged Trump's description of the mission. Chief Petty Officer Owens' father, Bill Owens, who served his entire life as a Green Beret in the Navy and as a police officer, questioned heavily as to why the mission went ahead if it wasn't even necessary. Army General Joseph Votel finally took responsibility where President Trump would not, acknowledging the loss of Ryan Owens, the wounded, the civilian losses, and the $75 million aircraft wasted. Ultimately, the rushed nature of the approval, the failed goals of the mission, and the loss of Chief Petty Officer William Ryan Owens highlights Trump's first mission as a tragedy. Thanks for watching. Sergeant Rooster, over and out.